we're going to go to the last topic of the night. But first, before we do that, for everyone at home, I have an announcement for you, okay? Number one, I will be at DebateCon, a real thing that is actually, for some reason, happening this weekend in Texas, where I will be debating everyone's favorite lovable icon, Infrared. And I will also say,
what's her fucking name?
It does look like he's dodging now the boxing match he said he was gonna, do with me. So
what's her channel? I don't know.
There was a thing, but maybe he won't back out of it actually. But who knows? But this weekend,
you did boxing, right? I think I recalled you saying something.
I boxed in high school. Yeah,
it's a new meta. Fuck debates. Fuck React content. Fuck manifestos. It's boxing time.
Exactly. That's actually why he's back.
I mean, she's not. It's not like she's an idiot. I'll give her that.
Second thing, we've actually started a Patreon here at Dylan Burns TV, and there's a lot of things you can get from the Patreon. Number one, the pleasure of giving me money. Number two, less money in your wallet. Number three, crippling debt from giving me so much money, and so much more. There's some movie nights in there. There's some other benefits, Q&A stuff, any of that. But I would appreciate if you all gave it a look out. I said if we hit 50K, I would do it, and I meant it. So if you want to go to Dylan Burns TV on Patreon, you can support the channel, and that would be pretty cool. Look at that. It's on screen now. It's scrolling. Isn't that lovely? Go support this. Go get all these lovely tiers.
I gave her a follow.
Yeah, and we're making a partner push over in the Wolf's Den too.
Wow.
Oh, wait. So you could come view over here. Oh wait, we're not doing self promotion. Oh, my bad.
It's okay. You can go from mover and shaker pill, the queer pill, the red pill, the blue pill, the black pill. So many different rows. But now let's go to the last topic of the night. Also remember to donate, sub, all of that stuff for tonight. It is much more difficult to create these things on a weekly basis than you think. Carter, I had to drag Carter in here. I dragged him in by his tail.
Yeah, he was like, you have to stay. So I'll stay the whole time. Yeah, it's up past my bedtime. An old man.
Wow, an old man.
Free Danabo. Free Danabo.
Don't free Danabo.
He's British.
We're going to schedule more panels. Okay, last topic of the night. I already forgot what it was. Let me go check. Last topic of the night. Oh, yes. The one that actually has to do with standing policy. Do you support the Freedom to Vote Act?
Let's go, boys.
Let's go, boys. Legislation that Joe Biden just made a massive speech about. He compared opposition to it in that speech to Jim Crow. It was an extremely fiery speech and compared its opponents to George Wallace. So I'm going to go around the room and ask them, do you support the Freedom of the Vote Act? We're going to start in the bottom left-hand corner with Stardust.
Yeah, I support it. I looked at it before, and it looks like that it's got a whole lot of good stuff in it. I understand that people are concerned because it seems to take away a lot of the state responsibility and puts it more of like into federal power, I guess. But just online, automatic, and same-day voter registration, that is going to change so much. Election Day being a federal holiday, that's a fucking banger, dude. A minimum of 15 days early voting. Why would anybody oppose this? I don't know. It just seems fucking based. So, and also restoring voting rights to previously incarcerated people. That's based as well. So yeah, I think it's such a banger. I don't understand why anybody would oppose it, but prove me wrong. So.
Okay. Carter?
Yeah, seems pretty good.
Wow. See, he knows how to keep it short
Biden
and
now,
sweet.
huh?
We're going to throw it now over to Tiberius.
Yeah, so I was going over this, and I found about 70% of this bill I particularly like. Stardust actually hit a few of them that I actually really do care about, and that is the alleviation of felony records is a huge one for me. I've been advocating this for 10 fucking years, and I'd love to see that hit. There's a few other things I can give you, but the long story short here is that I can be moved out of this position because FLS went into the finer details of this, but he was not able to share those particular details, so
You pulled me in 10 minutes before.
Yeah, anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, long story short is that from everything that I looked from the highlight reels and everything that I could dig into, about 70-75% of this bill I support. The problem is that FLS is going to maintain contention that it is a Trojan horse. So I want to see what the Trojan horse is. So I'll leave with that.
Okay, next I'm gonna throw it over to Taft.
I feel pretty agnostic on this bill, honestly. I think that as long as America is concerned about having a free and fair democracy, I think it seems fine, right? Like election holiday, making it easier to vote earlier, establishing more standardized voting procedures. They seem all fine. A lot of the nonpartisan, like anti-gerrymandering aspects, they seem fine, as long as they're genuinely, nonpartisan. And in regards to, like, allowing felons to vote, I think that would be the only, like, really controversial aspect of this bill. Because, I mean, as long as we're not having some kind of Heinleinian democracy where only, like, people who've served in the military can vote, as long as we're committed to having everyone vote, I don't think that people who have been previously incarcerated are going to have much worse voting, patterns than the average population. So that seems all right to me. In general, I think it seems like a fine bill. I mean, I think there's much ado about nothing, I think, in some cases, especially regards to both voter suppression and voter fraud. There's been analyses of laws regarding both of these. Doesn't seem like there's a ton of voter suppression or voter fraud that's effective. But, I mean, you may as well clamp down on it anyways, because neither is good.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to CTV to give the correct opinion.
Well, I would have to
Free and
say,
fair democracy.
specifically, Jesus, now I'm trying to remember what the fucking topic is.
Freedom to Vote Act.
That's right. But there was something that April said that...
Want me to come back to you?
Yeah, give me a
Okay.
second. The next one, just one,
Okay.
but like, because
Okay.
I wanted to reply to April directly.
Got it. I'll bring it over to your protege, Carter.
Wait, what? I already said I support it.
Oh, you're
My
right.
turn.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Third
Okay.
slip up today.
Oops.
What's going on?
Okay, well, we're gonna skip Rose Wrist. Let's just be server mute, and you know what? Server deafen too. Make his life harder. Now I'm gonna throw it over to James.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty good as far as,
Jesus
comparative
Christ.
to all the other current legislation we've tried to squeak through for the last 10 years. It doesn't go nearly far enough. Frankly, I find it ludicrous that there are people who are going to complain about things like voting by mail when, the federal government's totally good with, like, processing 240 million tax returns by mail. They seem to be pretty efficient at it. If everybody purports to want to have a, quote, democracy and people are involved and have a say in things, you should have more voting, not less. You should have wide open polls. You should have polls that are open longer, not shorter. You should have more voting areas. Like, the fact that we make voting so restrictive in this country is, like, reason number 8,946 why people continuously think that our democracy is constantly shriveling.
Okay. Now I'm gonna throw it over to.
Okay,
Fabian.
I gotta know.
Oh, CTV. Okay.
All right, I gotta know. Look. April, specifically with what you're saying, I feel like that the least controversial thing in the fucking bill was whether or not people that had served their time, right, for a felony and had gotten out, right, which is the way that I read the bill, would be able to vote. I felt like that was the least controversial thing out of all of it, right? The most controversial thing, though, was how the fucking federal government is going to sit here and give me a piece of legislation that basically says that they can then make all of the fucking rules for this thing, right? We already passed the fucking 19th Amendment. We passed the fucking 21st Amendment. You cannot discriminate among sex, race, fucking what's fucking laid out there, right? I can go get the exact fucking language if I fucking need to, but you all know what the fuck I'm talking about. So, since that's already there is no reason for the federal government to be making up all of these fucking rules at the federal level for this thing, whenever the 10th Amendment already kicks it back to the fucking states. Now, if you want to give me something that actually fucking, like, points out a very specific problem, instead of them just making up all of the fucking rules for the thing, right? because essentially whatever law that gets passed at the federal level ends up being the standard that ends up being set for state levels all the way the fuck down. And like that right there is a scary fucking thing. Whenever, like, all I really want at the end of the day is American citizens, if you're a citizen of the United States, being able to fucking vote in this country. That's all I really fucking want. But all the fucking rules, and I didn't really get a chance to go in depth with it because I got the invite fucking, about 3 hours before the fucking show started. So I got to do a quick skim over what we were going to be talking about. But that was the big takeaway that I took from it, was that the language that was being used was kind of fucking vague and basically encompassed every fucking situation that you could possibly have for them to be able to fucking set the tone for the thing and then arbitrarily fucking pick and choose where it is they're going to affect the thing. And that right there is a dangerous fucking situation.
So if I can give this sort of progressive response
It's
to
an
this,
open statement.
It's an opening statement.
it would be that, like,
It's
Wait,
open
what are you
statement.
Opening
doing?
statement.
oh, sorry.
Okay. So there was someone that I missed.
Yeah, someone.
But actually, I think it's no longer opening statements. I think we can go into
Is
it.
that what's going on?
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
that's what I
just-
thought.
There's
but-
2 people you've missed.
Wow. Okay. Do you guys see what happening right now? That's
okay,
I'm
you're
being
sorry.
nerfed
Okay.
in
You're
real
right,
time.
You're right.
because I'm
You're
out of
right.
control,
You're
okay?
right. You're
You can't
right.
handle me.
You're right. Fabian.
Look, so first and foremost, we need to understand what this legislation is. What this legislation is a poison pill that is not designed to pass. I do not think this bill is designed to pass because if you read the bill, right, I only got about 300 pages into it, but if you read the bill, it starts off right off with Congress's findings, right? This is pretty big this is pretty normal for any big piece of legislation. And the first thing the bill does is essentially shit on Republicans and shit on any form of voter ID laws and shit on the fact that anyone that's a felon that's not allowed to vote, that all of this is proof that these laws are systemically racist, right? So by being a Republican voting for this bill, if you are from a state or from a district, right, that has supported voter ID laws in any capacity or supported any of these, you have to admit by your signage of this bill that these are systematic racism, right? So if they were actually trying to, like, that first and foremost is ridiculous and absurd. But more going on. There is a ton of really evil, horrible shit in this bill if you give a fuck about voting in a democracy, which, you know, I'm a fucking anarchist, so at the end of the day, like, most of the time I don't really give a fuck, but this is more election fortification. This is not designed to actually help give more people the right to vote. This is election fortification. And one example I'll give, and I have tons of more examples I can give of all of the horrible, pernicious shit in this bill. One example I'll give is that gerrymandering, which was decided in 2019 by the Supreme Court case Rucho v. Common Cause decision, was not of the purview of the district courts or of the Supreme Court because they couldn't find a way to rectify these situations, and they were supposed to be held at the state Supreme Courts when issues of gerrymandering were occurring. Not only does it create a ton of new things that is designed to force states into using what they define as nonpartisan, which means statist elites that are going to support the state. But not only that, if you are an individual that you believe is harmed by it, the only place you can take it up, the only place that you can take gerrymandering court decisions has been moved to the DC District Court. And that's just one example of the sneaky shit that's in this bill that is designed to fortify this election in favor of the Democrats. It's not designed to give people access to the vote. That's the pretty little bullet points you're getting in your summaries of the bill. And if you actually read the bill, there's a fuck ton of weird shit in here, and we'll go into more later. It's fine. It's a poison pill Trojan horse.
Rose.
All right, finally, holy shit. Do you guys see what happened there before? It was real-time nerfing, okay?
Do you
Dylan
want me
just
to
can't
take it
handle
away,
Europeans.
or do you want
It
to
is 4 a.m. and he still cannot wear me down. Anyway, time to get to the actual content. But before that, also, CDV, if you have a problem, say it during the open panel, not in your closing statement. You can hide behind Dylan, okay? Now, what I have to say about the topic, okay? Voting is categorically the most important civil function we have. It is with it that we set the groundwork for pretty much all our other civil, political, and social systems. It is extremely, extremely important, and we should make sure that the functions and the accessibility to that is as open and is as appropriate as it should be within a system that holds democratic elections. If anything, I could even make the argument that it doesn't go far enough in certain departments, so I think the voting holiday is good. I'm personally a proponent of mandatory voting. I think it's probably a good thing that should be punishable with an income scaling fine, but once again, hey, having an election day and a holiday there, it's a great start, and I support it for that. And I just want to point out another thing as well, when it comes to like limiting, ID as politics and stuff like that, as policies in states, the policy in itself and the free vote, the policy that we're discussing, it actually has like a widening, and it makes it easier potentially for different states to set up ID verification for voting, because now it lengthens and it broadens the types of IDs that could be used and could be recognized for voting. So now we can work with a student ID, a passport, a hunting and fishing license, a bank card, utility bill, or SNAP identification card. So if anything, it broadens the ability to do that if that's something that needs to be done. When it comes to using IDs for vote in general, I think it probably would be fine if the United States of America had like a federally issued ID that is given to everyone who's eligible to vote. That doesn't seem to be the case right now, so therefore I'm against it, because it just seems to be an arbitrary blockage towards people's right to enact their democratic will that doesn't seem to stop anything significant when it comes to voter fraud.
Okay, it looks like it can be open panel. This is the last topic.
Rose, guess what?
What up?
Oh boy.
You ready? It's happening.
Guess what? This
Let's
is
go.
the
You
last
finally.
time-
We're
This
round
right-
3 in, and now
I
you speak up.
I don't know what you thought was going to happen, right? But this is the last time you speak without Dylan having to cover for you. You know how I know why?
Dylan's covering for me. Is that what you think is happening right now? You think Dylan is helping me out?
If you would just figure it out, do you know how I know why?
I have no idea what the fuck you're saying.
Right! You don't know how why, because as soon as you about to start speaking to begin with, I'm going to
Sushi?
overtalk
Hello?
you every
What are you
single
talking
time.
about?
That way you're forced into the position where Dylan is going to be covering for you and have to server mute me every single time you want to speak. That's what you get for saying some dumb shit.
How many times have you been server muted in this debate?
What are you going to do? 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 What are you going to do?
I'm just gonna sit here and
It's
silence.
going to be like this the rest of the fucking hour. Anybody else want to go? James, jump in there. Go ahead.
This is a good discussion on the Vote Act. James, do you want to speak?
I just like to say that CTV, man, I love you. You are the meme du jour, but tell me you've literally read 0 pages of the bill without actually telling me you've read 0 pages of the bill.
No, I was honest. I got the invite 3 hours beforehand, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
I came in here. I read the summary of the fucking bill, right? I kind of got a fucking good feel for it. Like the language in there is kind of fucking loose. What I read from the summary, right? And it seems like it's going to end up giving a lot of executive power to the federal government, right, for them to be able to legislate some shit and completely take the states out of the voting process, which is not where I think that the direction that we need to be going. I think that the 17th Amendment 19th Amendment, and I believe it's the 21st or 22nd amendments going there and enforce the no discrimination. I think that's a good place from where our federal government was originally framed, but somehow not passing a constitutional amendment in this case, considering we have the constitutional amendment of the 10th that kicks us back to the states, clearly just for me, from a framework standpoint, makes it unconstitutional.
Well, it's so first
What
and
about
foremost,
Article 1,
Article
Section
4.
4 of the Constitution?
Yeah, 1.4 says that they have the right for the time, place, and manner. Right? And this has been over and over again reaffirmed by the Supreme Court that they basically can do this. Now, the one thing that they can't do, which is a ton of the gerrymandering legislation that they added in, that they're coming down from Congress, especially when trying to force things into the district court. This is a direct violation of the Constitution that needs to be challenged. That being said, I never signed a Constitution. The Constitution is just a piece of fucking paper that is forced upon me with violence. But if we're gonna make that,
You fucking prick! All right, you took.
I can wipe my ass with that piece of paper. It's meaningless. I never signed
You took
it.
a fucking oath.
I didn't know you were a sovereign citizen, dude.
I mean, I'm forced to obey by the rules via the threat of violence. That being said, there's a ton of other things that are wrong in this bill. But instead of going into additional things that I'd like to talk about that are wrong, I'll just engage with what Rose Riss said, right? Which is that it's a good thing that voter ID laws are now expanded so that people can use student IDs, hunting licenses, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to combine this too with what Stardust was saying, that it's a good thing that we have same-day voter registration. What these things do is complicate the process and make it more difficult to validate who is voting legitimately and who isn't voting legitimately. And it makes it more and more difficult to be able to, it's the same thing with the regulations on whether or not we purge voter rolls. This legislation has made it incredibly difficult to purge voter rolls of people that have moved from place to place. And what this does is when you have all of this bloat, you can have additional instances of voter fraud. That being said, there's nothing fucking wrong with voter ID. The idea that voter ID disenfranchises voters is a complete bullshit fucking myth. Anybody can go to a fucking DMV and register to vote, and in almost every state, it's 30 days is the distance. So I don't understand why you guys are making the racist argument, or if you're saying that this is disenfranchising to blacks, or if you think it's just disenfranchising to the poor, the classist argument that somehow these people don't have the capacity to go to fucking DMV or whatever your institution is in your state and go get a fucking ID.
I can jump in. I called dibs.
Okay, you called dibs.
I gotta go after you, Stardust. You call up with me and Stardust.
Everybody listen, shut the fuck up, okay? Look, so
How can
Fabian,
we
was that all you
fuck
wanted
over
to say?
the
Because
poor?
people jumped down your throat pretty quickly.
I'm going to let everyone attack me, and then I'll just bring out
Okay.
more shit because I actually read portions of the bill.
I'm gonna write down star, then tie, then
Wait, I was called out.
rose,
Okay, there we go.
then tab.
Very reluctant.
In that order, and CTV. Okay. And it seems that James, okay, and James, and I'll just write down Carter because why not?
Just write down everybody.
Dude, his chat is malding right now.
Okay.
She starts.
So yes. So I don't think I said anything about ID. Fabian, I don't know where you got that from. The only thing that I said was that I think
I
it's
didn't say
great
that.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Then you can take back what you said about me saying stuff about things being racist then too.
I didn't call you out by name. I said it to the
Wait, who
panel
said
in
that?
large
Who
and
said the
combined
racist
multiple
thing?
Who
arguments.
said that
Who
though?
said
So
it?
you can just
You
admit that you're
specific-
wrong then.
I'm not going to admit that I'm
About what
wrong
you said.
because
Who made the argument that
behind,
you're
behind
You
the
know what?
ID.
You know what? You don't have to admit
I
that you're
already-
wrong.
I
I'll admit
already-
that
hold
you're
on, no.
wrong for you. Don't
No,
worry
no, no.
about
I
it.
already had an inoculation before
I'm the
what it
least
was that I
racist
said.
person
And
here.
I said anyone
need
that
to
is
say
making this argument. And then I said the same thing about
What
a
makes you
class
suspect,
argument,
though, Carter?
right?
Wait,
So the
who
fact that I
on the
already
line-
I
inoculated
didn't say
it.
anything about
It's
class.
the
I
fact
didn't
that you
say
can't
anything about
listen
race.
isn't your
Why,
fault.
Fabio?
Stop. Okay, we're gonna go one at a time. Okay. As much as I like a mess and this cat fight between Fabian and Star, I'm gonna let Fabio. Okay. So, Fabian, I'm gonna let you finish since the accusation that you accuse her of this. Okay,
Right, like I
accusation.
already said it. It's very clear. I inoculated before I said it. Anyone making this argument is what I said before that, and then she believes that she was personally attacked. That because I guess she's a narcissist and she thinks the world revolves around her. But I didn't call you out by name, and I didn't call your idea out
You
specifically.
did name me though. Okay. Well, anyways, you did
You
name
named me as well, but I
in
didn't say
talking
that.
about. Shut up, Rose Wrist. My time,
sorry,
okay? You did name me. In reference to this whole voting ID thing, which I never brought up. But what I did bring up is that I do think it's great that there's same-day voter registration. I have no problem with voter ID being required to register. No problem, my dude. But I think being able to register for voting the same day online and other means, I think that's excellent. Such a great thing. Also, allowing felons to vote, that's so awesome. I understand that it makes people uneasy that there's a lot of state powers that I guess are kind of going to be less now. I do think that voting is one of the most important things that we do as citizens. So I think it's very important that we do things that protect and expand people's ability to vote. And that means that there are more resources to serve voters who may have disabilities or voters who are overseas, that mail-in voting is more available to a lot of people. I think that's great. I don't see what the issue is here, but I don't appreciate the idea that somehow I'm endorsing voter ID or not voter ID, because I do think that some ID should probably be allowed. But I don't like this idea that I am doing that because I'm calling it racist or classist. What I would say is racist or classist is probably the felony, people with felonies not being able to vote. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm gonna throw this over to Tiberius.
I'm glad you
All right,
restated your position and then
Okay,
put
so-
things in my mouth. I thought you didn't like it when
It's my
people
turn.
put
Shut the
things in
fuck
your mouth.
up. God damn it. All right, anyway.
Put things in my mouth. Don't put shit in my mouth.
Oh, for fuck's sake, children. All right, so same-day registration voter ID laws. I actually do take the voter ID seriously, even though there's not a lot of cases of voter fraud. Is that on one side of that, I absolutely do want to make sure that people have IDs that are verifiable, that when they're voting, that they're voting in a responsible manner, that kind of thing, right? I don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with, if Republicans are going to mandate that people have voter IDs, and they're going to have to be, to some level of degree, you have to get, or there's a difficulty to prove competency, right? Then let's make it to where we supply the voter IDs. These can't be that expensive. We can put them through the mail, just like your tax returns.
They are.
It'll work out really well.
They're
So
free in almost every state. They're free in literally almost every state.
They seem to have some really big issues in the South, man.
No.
It's kind of weird.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
not. They're literally free in almost every state. You can't get a driver's license for free, but you can get an ID card for free in almost every state in America.
Also,
Okay,
there's a
but-
difference
all right.
between having it provided to you and having to go and collect it. That's fairly
Yeah,
significant.
there's some details in there, but yeah, like you could totally
Wait,
literally
what
put up
the
a.
fuck do you think the difference is? Sorry, Tiberius, because
There's actually a difference in there. But going there, standing in line for some places fucking 3 hours is a pain in the goddamn balls versus literally, hey, here's my Facebook picture, here's my ID, or here's my details. Please send it to me in the mail. I'll see you in 30 days. Like there is some ways that we can do this a little bit better and smarter. Absolutely.
Yeah, you get a paper copy in most states like the day of.
Yeah. So,
sorry,
the one other thing I'll say regarding FOS is, okay, so voter IDs are free. That's interesting because does anyone know that? I don't know it. I got to get a driver's license. Does anyone know that they actually can get those IDs? Which is a problem.
Apparently not. I thought it was common knowledge, but apparently not. I don't know.
I don't
That's
think it
probably
is.
something that's pretty important before you put
No,
legislation.
you just have to pay for other forms of ID that you need to prove who you are to then get the quote free voter ID.
Yeah, I mean, if you're homeless, it can be an issue, right? Like there's some right, like
so you
there
don't have
there
the
can
voting
there
ID,
can
you
be
just have
some
to pay for the ID to get the voting ID.
right, like
Cool.
there's this extremely small subset of the population that can have some difficulty getting the voter ID if they're a transient individual and it's difficult for them to prove that they are living in the state. But like a PO box or a bill is pretty much all you need.
I just want to bring up this study coming out of the National Bureau of Economic Research. It's done by the Harvard Business
Okay.
School, and
Can
it
you bring
indicates.
that up after Rose, since you're after Rose?
I just have a
Yeah.
really quick thing to say, and I'll throw it
Rose?
back over to you. Very simple principle for this, okay? Voting is super important. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We don't see significant voter fraud. Therefore, all that putting more restrictions, no matter how menial they're really going to be, is it will, in some sense, because it's affecting a lot of people, it will cause some people to not vote when they otherwise would have been able to, which otherwise is it's not a price worth paying, given that voter fraud does not occur in a significant capacity whatsoever. So this basic principle, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I'm going to send it back over to Deft.
Yeah, and just to support what Rose Rist is saying, this paper finds that strict ID requirements had no effect on actual or perceived voter fraud. So when we look at this bill and its increased restrictions on voter ID laws, they seem fine for me. I mean, honestly, voter ID laws don't seem to have a big effect overall, especially not on fraud. So if we're increasing restrictions on how they're implemented, fine. I don't really think there's a reason to implement voter ID laws, but if a state insists on implementing them, we may as well have some restrictions to make sure they're not the most egregious kind that they can be. That seems pretty reasonable to me.
Next is CTV.
Okay, so I'm glad you guys brought up Article 1, Section 4 of our Constitution. I'm going to be honest, too. I'm surprised to hear Rose make the argument that he did.
Positive or negative surprise?
Ah, shut the fuck up! I didn't want to hear your voice just because I mentioned your fucking name, you prick. Okay, now. So I'm surprised at the argument, considering it was a conservative argument, even though it used liberal justification. I don't give a fuck what the justification is, so long as you fucking end up agreeing with me, right? So the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations except as to the places and choosing of senators. Now, this is where, if we didn't already have the 17th Amendment on the books, right, where it literally took the vote away from the state legislature and placed it directly in the hands of the people, which was specifically what the House of Representatives vote was specifically supposed to do, and that the state senate or the senators were chosen by the state legislature's representatives that were chosen by the individual, then, you know, if that if the 17th Amendment wasn't already in place, then perhaps, right, there might be an argument for the type of legislation that Congress would have put in place now. But the fact of the matter is that because the 17th Amendment has already been put into place, right, and senators are voted via direct popular vote by the people, because of the 17th Amendment, it really puts into question what I would call a constitutional quandary when it comes to the election of individuals, because now this legislation would not only serve to circumvent, right, the states' rights, but also, right, introduce like a real fucking problem because the 17th Amendment is already in place.
Wait, Dylan, hold on. You're a mover and shake. Do you think you could tell, like, your people in the U.S. government that CTV on the Hippy Dippy Debate Panel has figured out something that is unconstitutional, and they can send it over to the Supreme Court so they can actually look at it? Because everybody fucking missed this except for CTV, it seems. So just
the Supreme Court already tunes into CTV streams. They just can't admit it.
Okay, I see. Well, then hopefully we'll see the Supreme Court pick up that alleged unconstitutional...
Sotomayor is actually in chat all the time.
Prick, and I'm going to remember what I said at the beginning of the thing. As soon as you start taking, I'm going to just start speaking again. I try to give you a chance. You fucked it up.
Well, you gotta let me moderate and throw it over to James.
I'm letting you moderate.
Now. Thank you very much.
So even though I shockingly and somewhat painfully agree with Fabian on some things, I got to push back heavy on the whole, you know, everything's fine. It's just a small percentage of people who can't get ID. Oh, you know, voting's only inconvenient for a couple of people. It seems like it's not people who look like Fabian or live near Fabian, but just other people, which always seems to be the convenient way to poo-poo things here
What do you mean by that?
States of America. I'm saying that you seem to think that there's no hassle to getting an ID or going to vote. So
no, I just wanted to call you out for your racism.
I'm
what
saying
do you mean?
where
Is
you
it
live,
my
that
skin
there
color?
There are obviously multiple
my clothing?
DMVs and open voting establishments everywhere, and people can just go get IDs and vote willy-nilly for free. It's like crypto land over there. It's like paradise.
What fucking world are you living in where there are there's these massive amounts of people in America that have this super difficult time getting an ID? Where are these people?
Okay, to start with, anybody.
It's like in the Appalachia, maybe, or something.
Well,
like
are you going to ask me a question, then keep interrupting me, or I don't know? You're going to maybe let me answer
the
fucking question.
Answer the fucking question. Go for it.
You sure? You're gonna let me finish the whole fucking sentence?
Go.
I will mute him if you want me to.
Oh, so please do. You'd be doing us all a favor on this one.
Okay, continue, James.
Okay. So apparently you are judging the entirety of the country solely by your own experiences or by one other person's limited experiences and not everybody's. This is a very wide, diverse nation. It's filled with many rural places in many states where there are no free IDs and you have to pay even to get a non-driver ID from the DMV, which of course you have to drive like fucking 3 hours to, because in a lot of states there's like 4 of them in the whole goddamn state. Like, you
So
gotta
what
stop
state?
thinking, like, if your voting situation is good, it does not mean that the voting situation of 300 million other people is good. And frankly, if you're, you know, I get the whole being against voting thing. I get it from the anarchist perspective, but even from the collectivist perspective of everybody should have a voice, well then, in this fucked up system, as fucked up as it is, you should still want as many people as possible to vote.
So again,
Have a voice
what
and
state?
be heard.
What state? Can you name one state where where there is a place where you have to drive 3 hours to a place to get an ID and it costs you money? Can you please name one
Idaho.
state?
Yeah, I grew up
Florida.
there. I grew up
Idaho?
in Idaho. Yeah, I drove
Florida!
2.5 hours to the DMV to pay
Fucking
$65.
All right, so let's see how many DMVs are in Idaho. Let's just
Wait.
see.
You ever tried to make it Orlando on I-4? Are you shitting me? It takes 3 fucking hours to get there. Are you fucking shitting me?
Transportation, by the way, American infrastructure, American highways. That's what.
Yeah.
Okay,
Shut
so-
the fuck up, bro.
Stop, everybody!
Hold on,
Everybody else, shut up! No,
so
there's no. You're not holding on me. Are you trying to hold on me?
No, I was trying to finish for Fabian. Fabian asked a question, I'm answering it.
Sorry, there are 44 DMVs in Idaho. 44.
And there's also parts of Idaho that are like 60 miles from and you have to drive through dirt roads. Like I grew up there. I grew up like 20 miles from the nearest like grocery store or gas station or anything. I grew up literally in the woods.
Okay, so if you're that
No.
far out, how far did you have to drive to go vote?
Well, I moved away before I had to vote.
Just curious, like, was it
I
a
didn't
similar
vote at the
distance
church,
because
I'm
you were
pretty
that
sure my
rural?
family did. So I think it's like an hour. I think they had to drive.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so there are somewhere in the country with 44 DMVs aren't enough, and in the entire year leading up, you went around with no ID in any capacity, and you had to drive multiple hours to go to a DMV, and for whatever reason, it had to be done last minute so that you could register to vote, and then you still have to drive an hour to vote.
Yeah, a lot of people don't find out until like a month before the election that they've been kicked off a voter roll. It happens. It's called reality, not the place where you live, where seemingly everybody gets tons of
Mistakes
notifications. Everybody
happen.
can vote and
Sure.
ID is free.
Mistakes happen, sure, but the overwhelming majority of the
Mistakes.
reason that voter rolls get purged is because people end up on multiple voter rolls because they move. Right?
So then what you're saying is there should be a robust system in place where even if people have recently moved, they can still get an ID and the right to vote very quickly and not have to spend money on it. Thank you very much. That is
No,
a salient
I'm not
point to
saying
make.
that.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that you ought to be able to get same day voter registration and bloat the systems that you already show because their government systems have inefficiencies baked into them. And this bill has tons of extra things that make it more difficult to do this process. More regulations and more federal mandates that come in that are going to make these systems even less efficient.
Wait, are you in favor of voter ID then, or are you not in favor of
One
voter
day
ID?
between 1 day and 5 days, so Fabian. What's the difference between 1 and 5 or 10 fucking days? What's the difference? If you have the documentation necessary to prove that you're a citizen of the United States, what the fuck does the number of days matter as a part of the argument?
This allows them to be able to go through the system before the election occurs and make sure that there hasn't been any fraud, that there hasn't been any issues, that there aren't people that are in multiple districts. This allows them to clean up the voter rolls and figure out what's going on, or to have everyone registered ahead of time.
This straight. Hold on. So let me get this straight. You think that because the government has a problem with organizing its fucking voter rolls, that somehow that the 1 or 5 or 10-day hold that you would put on the American citizen from making the registration to vote should be fucking withheld so that the government can do the fucking what is probably going to amount to like a fucking half-assed attempt at trying to do the things that you would hope that they would do. That's just me being honest, right?
It's a question of good, better, best, right? I'm against voting and using your power to enforce violence against people that lose your vote anyways. That being said, it's a question of good, better, best. And if you make things happen on the same day, you overcomplicate the process and open it.
You're looking to restrict. Give me a fucking break. It's an American citizen that you're looking to fucking restrict in this scenario. Like when it comes
No, it's
to
fucking
illegal
not. I'm not
immigration or
restricting you.
illegal aliens, I got no problems. And whenever there's inherent fucking problems with them not having the documentation necessary to prove that they're an American citizen ahead of time, then sure, you put a.
This
fucking
bill
right
is
on
literally
their shit.
doing that.
When an American citizen fucking does it, right?
This
and
bill
they
is
have
literally doing that.
documentation necessary to prove that, there's no reason for a 10-day wait on an American citizen.
Yes, there is. So that you don't have the issue that you just fucking showed.
You're
Because
fucking kidding me, bro.
so that you have proper identification and so that they have time to make sure that.
But
if they bring proper
they got
identification,
a fucking ID, they got the fucking third, like they got they have everything
do you wanna-
necessary to be able to prove that they're an American
Why are we
citizen. You're
punishing-
telling me that they should still be a 10 fucking day wait. Give me a break.
It's not a
why are
punishment.
we
Voting is a
punishing
punishment.
citizens For well, no, I mean that's what it
Voting
seems
is a
like. We're
punishment on the
punishing
people that
citizens.
lose.
Okay.
Wait, I have a very simple. Wait, so you say that same-day voter registration leads to like fraudulent or insecure elections or voter fraud or something of the sort?
I'm saying it complicates. I'm saying it complicates process.
But
It makes
that
it more
complication
difficult.
real
also
outcome?
It creates
complicates
more
process,
avenues.
multiple
Wait,
IDs.
I need to run through this quick. Okay, so do these complications you speak of, do they actually manifest into any real outcomes that we can see statistically happening, or?
Look, what I'm saying is that if you
That's
want to
an
take,
easy question.
Rose, shut the fuck up and let someone answer your question. What I'm saying is when you take one thing and you isolate it from a 700-page bill, right? Then you say like, look, the idea that it creates more avenues for people to commit voter fraud, in the fact that voter fraud hasn't ever been proven to be a widespread or to being overturning elections in and of itself anyways, that one thing, right, seems like a very simple thing. But when you have a 700-page bill that is tacking on multiple layers of insecurities within our election in the name of stopping racism, it's an issue.
So the answer to my question is no. You have no evidence of this actually manifesting itself into statistical outcomes.
You
I'm
do
ready to
have
hear your fucking
that's
voice.
not what I said. I said that you can't
Yeah,
prove
you're right.
that.
That's not what you said because you didn't answer my question whatsoever.
Rose, no, I don't need you to defend me with your inane ramblings. What I said was that there's no evidence that you can find widespread voter fraud that has overturned major elections. Voter fraud exists, and making it easier for voter fraud to occur. Like, I don't have the exact study that I can put in the chat for you right now.
You said that specifically same-day
Trying to
voting.
talk, I know you're trying to talk. Hide behind Dylan. Hide behind Dylan. Hide behind Dylan. Hide behind Dylan.
Yes.
Hide behind Dylan.
Specifically.
Yes,
that-
you don't need a study for that.
But
It's
hold on. You said
obvious.
specifically that same-day voting is going to complicate things and it's going to lead to like negative outcome. Obviously, that's the implication. If it complicates things but doesn't lead to any like demonstrable outcomes, then why the fuck do we care about it? There's no reason to care about it. So I'm asking you where you have
Because
that
I'm not-
perception from.
because
Where
I'm
you
not-
have
I'm not-
perception
I'm not-
that same-day
because
voting
I'm-
will lead to this
because
negative
we're
outcome.
not-
Do you have any
we're
evidence,
not-
or are you just pulling this
We're
out of your
not.
ass?
I'm not pulling it out of my ass. You disingenuous fuck. Listen, what I'm saying is we are not debating the same-day registration voting bill. We're debating a 700-page bill, or 529 if you have a different PDF copy, right? And this bill has a ton of things that can add up to additional issues or fortification, if you prefer that term. Now,
Okay, so
what
we
I'm
move
saying
off
is
the single-day voting thing then, yeah?
no,
wanna
you
focus on
can't.
the
You
other
can't
stuff?
isolate individual things and then say that it's not a problem when it obviously increases the likelihood for insecurity. It
You can't
does
name
so
a bunch
by
of stuff, but then fail
definition.
to substantiate any one of them when
I'm
you
not
go and
failing to
look at them
substantiate it.
specifically.
How fucking
You
stupid are
provide
you?
no evidence.
It's literally logic. Do you have any? If
Totally lost.
everyone
Seems like
fucking.
it's conjecture.
It's not
Like,
fucking
no
conjecture.
speculation.
It's so fucking
True.
obvious. If you
Well,
have a
here's the thing,
process with a
Fabio.
limited amount of resources and people, and then you have to add voter registration onto that process at the exact same day, you have limited the same resources and you have made it easier for these situations to occur. It is logic. You don't need a fucking statistical fucking analysis of what percentage it is. If you did that, you could know how damning that one individual thing is in a univariate analysis. But again, we're not doing a univariate analysis. We're doing a 700-page bill that has all kinds of fucked up shit in it, and we're just using basic fucking logic. If you guys
So
don't
that's
have that
fucking
basic
Maybe
logic,
I'm-
then I don't know what's wrong with you.
We got I gotta stop this. Carter's been waiting for a while, and I saw him raise his hand a second ago. So I want to throw it over to Carter.
I think I'm actually like reading it right now, part of it, and there's like a breakdown of it. I think the best part of the bill, we're talking about voter ID and all of that, is that they want to enable like essentially you can register online to vote by proof of identification via tax, whatever form, some way to prove where you live, where you are last year, whatever. I think they have that in parts of Europe. I'm not sure.
No, it's a
Where you
totally
can
good part of the bill.
So where you can just do it online and it requires you're born with the ID, right? And I think any deregulation of voting is better than anything. And I agree that with anybody here who has said that like less voter ID is better, because the more voter ID, like the less people who participate in your democracy. I don't think there's any other better way to say it. The bill may be convoluted and have a bunch of shit in it, but I think no matter what you're going to end up at, it's better. Also, I read who supports the bill, and it's Manchin, so he's a hero.
Okay. I got that over to Tiberius and then Stardust.
Yeah, so FLS, I actually do appreciate intuitive and logical, rationales for this. So, I'm not going to be like, oh my god, I need to see the study before I make a conclusion. I'm not a consequentialist. So here's the thing I'll break down with you, because I get even your main concern and I agree with it, but on the other side of that is there's ways we can get ahead of this game. We can send out the voter rolls 3 months at a time. It's like, hey, we're making sure to confirm that you are on the voter roll. If you don't have it by a certain amount of date, then obviously you're gonna want to have to check in. Basic shit like this. Administration isn't hard. Well, okay, it seems to be hard for a lot of people, but I'm a nerd. Anyway, long story short here, we can do this the right way or we can do this the wrong way. We can be like, hey, look, we give you 3 weeks to vote ahead of time. So if you want to do that, you can. We ship out mail-in ballots 2 months ahead of time. So you've got plenty of time to do your shit, send it back in. We'll put it in a nice box and count it on election day. Either of that shit works. But all of this where it's just like, no, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to change anything. This fucking shit sucks, man. We're better than this. We can literally do a slow rolling census every time we have an election now if you want to integrate it. I'm done. Losing my brain cells here.
Okay.
I'll just in response. Yeah, it's
so
fine
you
if
know
it's
what?
one at a
So
time.
fuck you, Rose Rish. You had to hide behind Dylan in order to get your fucking voice
I
out.
didn't
How's
ask
that
him.
feel?
He stepped in
How's that feel,
independently.
you
That
little
was an
bitch?
act of
How's
love
it feel?
from Dylan right
How's
there.
it feel? How's it feel?
I didn't ask him. He
I'm glad
stepped
you
in
know how it
independently.
feels right now. That's right. That's right. Baby, and you were going to say something.
Do you remember last time we had a debate where we had to pick from the
I
policy
don't
division?
even know. You're
remember
trying
what
to
happened?
talk, and you said a thing at the beginning of the thing that prevents you from being allowed to talk. So, Fabian, go ahead.
Dude, can we not?
You guys are
I actually
oppressing me
cede
right
my
now.
time
You're
to Rose
oppressing
Risk,
me.
no matter how mad I
don't
am.
give a fuck. If you're going to start doing that shit, then we can do that shit too.
Okay,
How's
well,
that?
CDB, you know, if you,
In real time.
I think it's
like,
Rose
you have to
Risk's
be-
turn to speak. I cede my time to him.
Look, I just
It is
got to
actually
prove that.
Stardust. It's actually Stardust's time to speak at the moment.
go on.
Well,
Okay.
I wanted to hear
Stardust.
what Fabio was gonna say.
No, I was just saying, I think that certain provisions in this bill are good provisions. And I don't think that, and I don't think that if we individually look at them, right, and have an argument about how they work individually, that they're a bad idea to pass one thing, see what happens in an election, see how it works, and make these incremental changes to make things better. I think being able to go online, right, is perfectly fine, especially if you're showing some IDs so that you can prove that you are the person that you are, so that apparently the 44 DMVs in Idaho aren't enough and you got to drive 3 hours. That sucks. That's
there's
like making it
1.8
fucking
million.
difficult, right? I think there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that it wasn't, and I apologize. It's not actually 44. It's 44 counties that have them in them. Regardless. So I mean, and I don't necessarily think that a lot of I really don't have much skin in the game when it comes to certain specific instances of changing and fixing things. The problem that I have with this bill is that it's obviously a poison pill because of the way that it is written. Is extremely judgmental in calling these things systemic racism, as a matter of fact, that basically makes it unable for a Republican from a Republican state to vote for it anyways. So, and the fact that they know that they're not going to be able to get this passed in the Senate because they couldn't get the past 2 previous versions passed in the Senate unless they get rid of the filibuster. They did this shit on purpose. They did it on purpose, and they put these poison pills in the bill so that they can go back home to their election and say, look at these Republicans, they're racist and they won't let you vote. It's not about actually passing this bill. One of the examples of something that's fucking horrible in this bill is that it actually establishes a new chain of custody in the way that that the paper ballots will be used. And the way that this chain of custody is defined makes it so that independent audits cannot be done, and makes it illegal for any state, let's say Maricopa County, to bring in Cyber Ninja or something, to be able to do an independent audit. Instead, only the state can do it. And the people that they choose to have this fall under is the purview of the Elections Assistance Committee. And if you know anything about the Elections Assistance Committee, unlike me, I had to fucking read up about it. I was like, what the fuck is this? Right? Mostly what they do is information, and mostly what they do is they handle the assets and the funds that go to the states towards making certain things acceptable. However, they're giving them, a federal authority, additional power in investigating voter fraud. And this is a company that the Office of the Inspector General's office said that they were allocating resources appropriately because they had to settle out of court for firing people and not hiring people because they said that they were Republican. They will only hire Democrats and will actually fire Republicans. And these are the people that are going to be be in charge of investigating, having the sole rights of investigating because of chain of custody changes. Like there's poison pills in this bill that make it impossible for any Republican to be able to vote for this bill. And it's not designed for it to pass. It's designed to be used as a cudgel to call Republicans racist and not actually talk about issues or fix anything. If we want to fix something, take something like making voting day a national holiday and just make that a bill in and of itself. And I think most people would vote for it, and that would be good change. But that's not what they're doing.
So I can see how certain, oh crap, I accidentally clicked on something. I can see how certain words like make a lot of people upset. But I think when you look at an issue that affects a certain group disproportionately, I don't think it's wrong for them to acknowledge that this is the reason why we're proposing this bill, because there is an issue here that affects a group disproportionately. I do see that, using the word racial discrimination in systems can be divisive. But if we kind of like separate racism from structural racism and view them as two different things like they are, then I think we avoid that problem. But I think most people don't have the understanding of that. And then secondly, I would say, like, I understand what you're saying here about us needing to look at the bill as a whole versus looking at it individually. And maybe I'm just not understanding this. Maybe I am misunderstanding or something. But it seems like you yourself were getting super caught up on individual things.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to respond to individual things that people are supporting.
Okay,
on the panel.
well,
and then showing the issues of those individual things.
Okay, sure, but like, for example, the same day voter registration, there's still processes to make sure that the people registering are citizens and that they're legitimate. And if you run into issues where you see a duplicate vote or something, then you can fix that. But that happens after registration and after voting.
And one of the ways that you fix that is by having like a waiting period so that you can make sure that everything is clean before the election day.
I think honestly, the ability to vote for me trumps any concerns I have about a duplicate vote because somebody moved or something like that. I think that it's a higher priority in my mind that people have the ability to vote, even if that's registering last minute, than it is for us to be so concerned that we are installing a waiting period, because we already do this. We check the votes after the voting has occurred. I don't see why we need to change that.
I have a question. Do you have an issue?
You got a question? I got a question too.
Okay, oh my God, CTV,
are you sure?
Talk.
If he wants to make a declarative statement at the beginning of the fucking debate, right, then he has to answer for the consequences.
It's very simple, CTV. What I talked about at the beginning was, if you have a substantive disagreement with anything I say, you should bring it up during the panel, not just ramble over me like a petulant child. But that's okay. So, FL Scott, when you were talking about the systemic racism
statement that you made to begin with, right? That's all you can do. You can stand by it.
Can we please?
Okay.
Is this a functioning Hippy Dippy? Is this all the other 51 ones have been on?
You're just simply resting on fucking Dylan Burns' moderation right now, which was your declarative statement. So if you're going to make a declarative statement like that, you got to understand that there are in fact consequences for your actions, sir. This is a part of
how all your panels go, Dylan, or
have
I just been
joining
uniquely successful
the
in
greater
stirring up
society as far as maturity and growth, right?
This is your champion, folks.
This road, right? This is a lesson you're going to have to learn the hard way.
CDV, you gotta let him speak, okay?
Do you rescind your declarative statement? Do you rescind your declarative statement?
My declarative statement was in regards to you having a substantive disagreement with any one of my arguments.
Is it rescinded, yes or no?
It doesn't matter if it was rescinded or not.
It matters to me.
Well, yeah, but I'll have to moderate, and you don't want
I know and so what he'd be doing is resting on your moderation instead.
Yeah,
of having
you
to be
can and you
forced to
can live knowing that, but
consequences
he does not need to accept that.
That's all right. If for him to be,
Okay. We gotta
Guys,
move on. We only got like a few more minutes anyway. Okay.
it looks like baby
This
wants
is-
something to say.
This is
Well,
what
but-
this
but-
is what
but-
happens
oh,
when
the
you
baby
start
show.
reading
I get to
Sterner.
go to Rose. I'm sorry, Rose. You
I
gotta
think
go.
CTV started reading
Is he
Sterner.
gonna stand by his statement though? I gotta know.
Yeah, he doesn't want to
Still,
respond.
I'm
so
not
I gotta
gonna
go
I'm not
to
gonna
Rose.
I'm not gonna back off my statement because
You're not
what
gonna
you're doing
back
right
off
now has
because
nothing
I
to do with
can't
my
back
original
off either.
statement.
You can fucking stand behind Dylan Bird's moderation so you can be able to talk. I don't know what to tell you.
Have we ever seen CTV this riled up? Or
Have
am I,
you
like, being
ever
unsuccessful?
decided
This
to
is-
like make
this is
a
not
network
unique. This is
statement
vodka
and
talk.
then like
This is
Huh?
not unique. This
Okay,
is just
got
for
it.
vodka talking.
what?
All right, I see.
Okay.
So you
Let's
understand
go.
what was
Get this
getting
through.
here when you walked into the
CTV,
room?
we're just doing that. I'm sorry, but Rose, say what you want to
Okay.
say.
Great. So, Ethel Scott, when it comes to you seem to take issue with the like putting this from like talking about the voter suppression thing from a marginalized person's perspective. Is your issue with that because you think it's like disingenuous political theater, or is your issue
Yes.
with that you don't believe there's any merit to that
Yes.
piece of analysis?
Yes, I mean, I would. I mean, obviously, I'm going to take umbrage with classifying people and racism through that, but that's a whole nother conversation of why I have issue with Marxist philosophy and cultural, and we'll say critical theory and critical race theory and things like that bring these ideas to the forefront of our philosophy. But putting all of that aside and my issues with that aside, I think that the problem here is that there's easily other ways to frame this, and in that obviously if you were actually trying to get a Republican to vote for this, you wouldn't start your bill off with findings that accuse anything that they've done in the past of systemic racism. Right. What you would do is you would say that certain individuals, in certain communities, yada, 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 have a harder time, getting access to the vote or yada, yada. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. But they specifically say that it is racist to not allow felons to vote because felons are disproportionately black. And this is more proof of systemic racism. And they cite that in the beginning of the bill.
I mean, it is proof of systemic racism, isn't it?
Isn't that
It's
wrong?
not,
Yes.
right? It's not. It's
Wait,
just
wait,
not. From
Wait,
only
so
a
you do not
leftist
think
would
it's
agree
proof
with
of
that.
systemic racism. Wait, do you or do you not think it's proof of systemic racism?
It is not proof of systemic racism.
It's not proof. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a set of very simple questions, and we'll see where this gets us. So, do you think the historical treatment of Black Americans in the United States of America, when it comes to Jim Crow and the history of slavery or whatever, has had a downward pressure on their ability to accumulate wealth in this country, or in the
Presently,
country of the United States?
to a certain
Do you
degree,
think it's
yes.
affecting them
Yeah,
contemporarily?
of course.
Okay,
yes.
excellent. So when it comes to issues of like voter suppression, when it comes to who's going to be more likely to be caught on the fringes of not being able to vote because of more of these restrictions, do you think it's going to be people higher or lower on the economic ladder?
I don't think that you can extrapolate from historical examples of systemic racism from a process that is so simple to do that it easily could be cured in one generation.
So I'm going to rephrase the question. Do you think it's people higher or lower on the economic ladder that are going to suffer disproportionately when it comes to being like?
I don't think
voting?
anyone's suffering from voter suppression if all they have to do is go get an ID.
Okay, so you don't believe.
Unless
So
that
I
there will be
deny the
people caught on
premise
that.
of the question in and of itself.
Unless
Okay,
they're
so what
felons,
about
right?
what about the felon thing, for instance? Do you believe it's going to be, disproportionately people that are okay?
Again, that's not suffering. That's laid out in
perspective.
the Constitution that they can do that. Now, do I personally agree with it? No. But to say that it is somehow an imposed racist thing when it's a part of the framing of the Constitution,
So simple question.
that
So
you can
don't
do
think
that
there's
to
a significant
felons.
difference in whether or not the people on higher up in the socioeconomic ladder or lower on the socioeconomic ladder get caught up by more voter restrictions and end up not being able to vote? Do you think it's like equal?
I'm sorry. Can you slow down just a second and
Do
rephrase
poor
your question?
people have a harder time voting?
Voting or not? Do you think poor people?
I don't
will be
think anyone
disproportionately
has
affected or not?
I don't think anyone
You're
has
not answering my
difficulty
question. Do you
voting.
think they're going to be disproportionately
Right, because
affected, or
you're
do you think everyone
trying
across
to
the board is affected?
rephrase a question with a
I'm
premise
not
that I don't
rephrasing your
agree
question.
with. I don't agree with the premise of your
You're
question.
really paranoid.
I'm
You're
not
really paranoid.
paranoid.
Okay, I'm asking you a very simple question, okay? Do
No,
you believe
I
that
am
these
not
voter
going
restrictions
to
will
answer a question that requires that I agree with the presupposition that is in the question in and of itself. If you don't understand that,
we're
I don't know
getting
how to
there.
help
If
you.
you disagree with that, we can get at that by the end of it. But right now, I've asked you one question, you agreed to that, and now I'm just on the second question. You shouldn't be afraid of this. This is
I'm
very
not
simple.
afraid of
Do
it.
you believe
Stop telling me
the
that.
voter restriction
Shut the fuck up.
disproportionately affects poor people?
You're
or-
not gonna listen. I don't agree that voter suppression is a thing that can occur in this situation if all you have to do is go get a fucking ID?
Okay.
This is the guy that said logic before, by the way. You can't answer simple
Rose,
questions.
Rose, you said
I
you
bet.
gave up, so I gotta throw it
I
to
did.
Carter.
I'm sorry.
Then I'm gonna
Okay.
throw it to Star,
Scott.
then Taft, and then we're wrapping up for the night.
I don't know if this is Rose's
How
question,
can
but
we
do you think
fuck
poor
over
people
the
have a harder
poor?
time voting? That's it.
Do I think poor people have a harder time voting?
Yeah. Doesn't matter what you call poor or anything. Do you think people with financial troubles have a harder time voting in America?
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so inherently we know that like there's systemic racism, and its biggest factor. Is
Well, no,
that
I'm not
it
gonna. I'm not
pushes
gonna agree
people-
that there is systemic racism in the way because
That-
there's a
that's
lot.
okay.
It's a very
You don't have
loaded
to
term,
agree.
right? So there's a lot of
Okay, you
philosophy
don't
that
have
goes
to
behind
agree.
that.
We're just gonna go by the reality, and the reality is that there is definitely been pressure on people of color throughout American history.
Absolutely.
And that has led to financial disparity in America. So therefore, people who are predominantly of lower wealth are those of color. So people who are of color cannot vote as easy as white people.
Well, you say therefore, but there can be multiple reasons why that is occurring. But continue.
No, that's literally it.
It's
They
only
keep-
environmental
those
pressure from the
It's-
state.
It's not the only reason,
Well,
but it's a
that's
very
like-
big contributor.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the biggest one that I'm trying to make.
Again, all you have to do is go get a fucking ID and vote.
But that point, you just agreed that it's
We
hard
restarted the
for-
dialogue.
I don't care that. I don't care that. I don't care that that it's harder. Some people own cars and they don't own cars. Therefore, it's easier for them to get around town if they have cars. That doesn't mean that we need laws giving everybody cars.
We should.
Well, that's stupid.
I don't agree with giving everybody cars.
Some people live in cities.
Ferraris, houses. Everyone should get a house too, actually,
Mm,
and food.
Stardust.
I kind of wanted to go back to the whole same-day voter registration. We already check these things after people have cast
Why
their
are you
votes.
going back there?
Because I didn't get like a response from you.
You got so many responses. It's dominated the conversation.
I didn't get a response. I didn't get a response from the person I wanted. All I wanted was a response from you, Fabio. Okay, I didn't want it from
appreciate it.
anybody else. Yeah. Okay.
What do you want? What do you want to know?
What do you say to that?
To what? To
We
this-
already do. What I
that
said.
some states already have same day registration.
No, that some places we already check these things, these inconsistencies you're talking about after votes are cast.
Okay.
So why do we need a waiting period?
I never said that we needed a waiting. I said that the federal government shouldn't be stepping in and instituting a lack of a waiting period because it's the purview of the states to handle this. And then there are different places in America, and some places need a waiting period as they have seen fit, and some places don't.
Well, if the federal
Some people have the
government
resources
is-
to do it, and some people don't have the resources.
Yes. Okay, sure. If the federal government, though, is getting involved, and let's say they provide funding to assist in this, what's the problem?
Well, taxes are theft, first and foremost.
That's communism.
Of course. Of course.
So right off the bat there, that's one problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, okay. Then I guess the next thing, I think we're just going to have to disagree on the taxes or theft part, but I appreciate where you're coming from there. I can see where you're coming from.
Fair enough.
The second thing I would say is that I don't understand if we require IDs across the board. And I mean, I'm fine with IDs. I just don't see if people are able to present IDs, why there needs to be a waiting period. And then another thing I would say is that
I feel like that's
I
been beat to
think-
death.
okay, that's fine. Well, I just wanted to say it anyways, whether it's been beat to death or not. Okay, Fabio? I feel like saying the things I want to say. So, then the next thing I would say is that I think you have a very strong aversion to certain words. And one of those words is anything that has to do with racism. And when people say systemic racism or disparate outcomes, things like that, I don't think anybody's calling a certain person racist, right? We're just saying that the outcomes of something disproportionately affect a certain group, and that is a racist outcome. Do you understand that much?
Oh, I'm fully well versed in sociological theory and critical theory and all of these things. I have an aversion to certain words because people use these words and they have no understanding of the Marxist materialist dialectics that they're sneaking in. They have no understanding of the history of the critical theory. They have no understanding of how these words are coached and caged in so many bad philosophical ideas that are destructive to our society.
Look,
So yes, I have an aversion to certain words.
I understand that, but I don't
Not
give a
paranoid,
fuck
but-
about Marx. You know,
Well,
because
she brought it up,
Marx-
so I'm explaining why.
I understand what you're saying. I really don't give a fuck about Marx. If I remember correctly, Marx said some weird shit about Jewish people. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that. But
Right, but you
anyways,
use language that's coached in his philosophy.
Okay, but there's language coached in everybody's philosophy, and there are plenty of people who are shitty people.
Yeah, weren't you the person that said before
Cool.
that no ideas
Weren't
are
you the
unique? They're
person
all
that said
derivatives?
earlier that you had to rely on Dilbert's
No.
moderation?
That was Carter.
That
was Carter.
CTV, when you do this, you distract from me. Okay, that okay, you're distracting from me being the center of attention right now. Okay.
I don't understand. Why does he do it again? Okay, so we're gonna throw it over to Taft for the last speaker of the night, I believe. Unless Ty, did you raise your hand?
No.
Okay, Taft.
Before closing statements. Yeah, sounds good. I mean, in regards to what FL Scott is saying, I think what he's getting at is this sort of problem that if you have a law which is applied equally across, racial groups, but has a disparate impact on one or another, the bar that we not allow any law which might have disproportionate outcomes but is applied equally, the requirement that we don't allow those kind of laws on the basis that they're racist is it's a scary law, or it's a scary bar to put on things. And it sort of reminds me of some of Ibram X. Kendi's work. Ibram X. Kendi makes the argument that if you have any law which is applied equally across the board, at the very least, it's going to be reinforcing the status quo, right? So if you give
Yes.
money to everyone equally, then it's not helping, because what we really need to be doing is disproportionately benefiting Black people over white people. And that's the only way that we're going to reverse, the centuries of discrimination and, income inequality and so on. That's Ibram X. Kendi's argument, right? And I think that's legitimately a dangerous argument because it introduces a kind of systemic bias towards Black people or towards minorities in general, which is totally blind to the reasons why these sort of inequalities might exist in the first place. So I think this is sort of legitimate in a broader philosophical sense. But in this specific instance, I am going to critique FL Scott a little bit. I will say that it does seem legitimate to probably allow these felons to vote, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily
I'm in support of it,
bad policy,
so you don't got to
even
dig at me. I'm for giving felons the right to vote if everyone else is gonna have it.
Okay, yeah, it does seem like a legitimate policy, and it does happen to disproportionately benefit Black and minority people.
Okay, we're now going to wrap up. We're going to do outro statements and also shout outs at this time where you can shout out all your stuff. We're going to start in the bottom right hand corner so I can keep Carter away from his bed for the longest period of time. Tiberius.
All right, so just to wrap up my general thoughts
So
on this
mean.
particular topic, we can do voting IDs like a pain in the ass, or we can do them very easily. And there is a few precautions that FLS brought up that I think are a little bit of concerns.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair.
like we might be making voting a little too easy, but that's more of an intuitive argument. And if you need data, well, then I guess we'll have to wait for the thing to pass before you get the data. My whole thing is that this isn't hard to do right. And this is actually the thing that kind of pisses me off about the Republican Party. You want to take election security seriously? Great, wonderful, 100% behind you. But make sure people actually have the right to vote. Otherwise, it makes you look like a little bitch, like you're walking out of the conversation. It's not okay. People have the right to vote, and they should be, exercise that right to vote. That's why we have a democracy. Democratic Republic, by the way. But anyway, The whole thing's here is that if you are interested in anything I had to say, you want to know more, Tiberius D on Twitch and YouTube. I host the Mascot Podcast. I talk geopolitics. I like to review sci-fi. Any of that seems really cool for you. Come check me out. Appreciate you having me.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it now over to Taft.
Great. I don't think that voter fraud or election fraud is something that is a serious systemic problem. So I don't think that it's, I don't think that voter ID laws are super necessary or need to be protected or allowed to be implemented in their strictest form. In regards to sort of closing out on this topic, I do think that this act is probably all right overall, though I say that I haven't read through every piece of it. So maybe there's like some really strong argument for some hidden part that is going to be super disastrous.
I also have to be the heel.
I think that I would just need to research more in regards to that. But, on first blush and hearing the arguments presented here, I do think that if the bill does exist in the way that, its proponents are presenting it, it seems like an all right bill.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw it over to Star.
Yeah. I think I've said like everything I can say, and it's not really worth it for me to go over my thoughts on this, except, I think I just think that expanding the ability to vote for a lot of people is great, and if states get more funding through that, then that's great. But yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to say. I'm Stardust.
Hey,
you can find
Woodsman.
me on
Appreciate the raid.
twitch.tv/Stardust. I stream every day, 7 days a week, at least 7 hours. So I haven't taken a break in months. So check me out. I'm here. I meme and I do serious stuff as well. So yeah.
I agree. Stardust streams too much. Rose?
So final opinions on this topic. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Voting is super important. We need a real good excuse if we're going to put any forms of barriers in front of there. Now, obviously, you can have arguments about the best way to put the barriers and whether there are maybe some auxiliary benefits to it, but far beyond anything that was discussed right now on this panel, I would say. Now, on to the more important thing, okay? This is my first appearance on the Hippy Dippy Roundtable, okay? And I've really shaken it up. CTV got really riled up. This person, they're supposed to be the challenger for the title, for the belt, and they get rattled over some Swedish teenager who's debating for the first time at 4 a.m. I don't know how good this champion is. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Even Dylan had to nerf me 4 times, just got muted for no reason. It's really sad. But yeah, overall, my name is Rose Wrist. Thank you for having me on, Dylan, even though I just kind of said that. Forget about that. Whoops. And yeah, find me, Rose Wrist, on Twitch, on YouTube. And I upload videos almost every day, and I stream twice a week because, I'm busy. I have other stuff to do as well.
Rose, I appreciate you staying up so much past your bedtime. Tell your parents that I apologize. I'm going to throw it over to James.
As always, Dylan, Danabo, the whole team, I appreciate you having me. At least, you always know you're going to have one angry leftist when you holler. Bottom line, unless we have a very simple, extremely free national system where literally everybody can get an ID on demand, no questions asked, essentially what you're talking about is jumping through hoops or initiating a poll tax. And the last I heard, people who founded this country weren't really big on either of those things. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a leftist who hates the Constitution. So if you want to enjoy actual base takes that, aren't attached to something shrouded in black and gold, y'all can come by, holler at me, James from the internet here on Twitch. I tell you to follow me on Twitter, but I already got banned for life for, saying mean things about Tommy Lahren. So come by, say hi, and much love, everybody. I appreciate you. Cheers.
What did you say about Tommy? What did you say about her?
I may or may not have called her the 6th generation anchor baby of an undocumented Russian immigrant.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Fabian.
Yeah, so in summation, there are provisions of this bill that I agree with. But I can obviously not support this bill for some of the things that we disagree with, some of the issues that you saw on the panel, but also all of the things that I mentioned that everyone conveniently kind of pivoted away from and acted like I didn't say because they're actual really serious issues like, the EAC getting power or, not being able to have chain of custody, making it to where you can have private companies or other people hired so that we can do better secure audits, or the fact that gerrymandering is going to be moved to the DC district court, making it essentially a leftist haven for deciding whether or not gerrymandering is occurring, and things like that. The things that they know are issues, but they only want to talk about the things that they think they can hammer me on, that they support in this bill, instead of having an honest, good faith conversation. But what can you expect from lefties? I will say this, however, I just want to add one additional one, so that we can, just one additional thing is in Section H, they have a prohibition on restrictions on the donation of food, right? And when you read that, you're like, oh my God, of course we need that. And then you realize this is one of the many poison pills in the bill, because many Republican legislators instituted a 50-foot ban from giving out food and water in the voting lines. You had to be 50 feet away from the polling location, because Democrat and left-wing organizations were coming in and handing out pamphlets and telling people who they needed to vote for, and were doing so under the auspices of giving out food and water, almost constituting bribing people for votes. But Democrats got to make sure they're able to do that. I will say I had a great time. Roseris, if you're not happy with CTV as a champion, I guess you just don't understand the memes here on Twitch, and you'll eventually get it. It's part and parcel of blood sports, and I'm coming right on your heels, motherfucker. Love you very much. It's Fabian Liberty on Twitch and YouTube, but honestly, I think Discord is probably the best place for what we do. It's much better than everything else. So join the Discord.
For everybody restreaming this, you can find me at twitch.tv/Hasanabi. I'm throwing it now over to CTV for his outro.
Yeah, so I think it's obvious what we saw.
Oh, fuck, I forgot to do the quote. I'm sorry.
Statement and then choose to.
I'm sorry, I got too far into it.
That they were accusing somebody else of. Right? So because of that, the only thing that can be said is this generation clearly loves their participation trophies, and they got to shout themselves out, right? Because they got one. I don't give a fuck about you, dude. The last time I talked to you, you were a disingenuous fuck. You're a disingenuous fuck now, and I don't give two flies of a fuck about you, which is why you're not a part of my community. Got that? Okay, cool. So, that being said, I feel like it was a good conversation with everybody tonight. I feel like we got a lot of good memes, and until someone decided that they were going to, create this whole situation where CTV was going to have to overtalk them so that they can then cry back to the moderator, which they did, and Dylan gleefully fucking fell for it. It makes me question whether or not this man is actually the fucking leader, right, of the multi-million-dollar cyber terrorist organizing fucking gun smuggling organization that I've been a part of for this last year, or if this is just somehow, some way, a way to be able to give these poor little lefties, right, the fucking thing they're looking for, right? That's all I fucking know, right? So,
Dylan oppressed me.
beyond that, you can fucking find me at twitch.tv/critically thinking veteran. I'm sitting over here on Wednesday nights. We host Marvel Me with your bullshit or Be Disconnected. Thursday nights is Halo night. We're going to be fucking getting down with the tournaments. And Friday nights, we're typically going around to all of the various politics communities and debating these very things. You might have saw the debate that I had this earlier with BPF where I made him rage quit. You might have seen that. It's pretty funny if you haven't. So not only am I owning the left wing, I'm owning the right wing, and that's specifically Fabian, right? It's why everyone else is in the chase for the runnings for the Hippy Dippy Championship belt.
Hey.
And Destiny, in case you were fucking wondering if you've been forgotten about, bro, you've been in Florida this whole fucking time. You've been doing nothing but ducking and dodging, right? The fact of the matter is, I'm still fucking here. I'm still waiting for your bitch ass to go ahead and get ready for the fucking title match. That way we can go ahead and get it down, right, to when it's going to be, right? And then what the topic's going to be around, because it's changed a few different fucking times. Not only the topic, but the fucking time and place, right? Let me know when you're through fucking ducking so that we can get this shit done, because it's not only just me, right? But the fans want to see it too. That right there is the fact of the matter, right? And the fact of the matter is that CTV's the people's champ. And right now, I'm not even advocating on behalf of myself.
Plus, I have to debate him after you lose.
Fabian.
I have to debate Destiny after he loses, so
the best thing I like about CTV is how he speaks in a third person. That's my favorite thing. Now I'm going to throw it over to Carter to wrap us up for the night.
You can follow me at Carter. Yeah, I think that this is just a net positive. I think getting more people to vote is the best thing.
Hippy Gypsy channel?
I'll be honest. It's obviously just like a thing to look like the Democratic is progressive Democratic Party, but they're not. Like I said earlier, there's no progress. It's just all show, and that's it. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Is this what you expected?
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, I had fun. It's way past my old man bedtime. I go to bed like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, I
2 hours
understand.
ago.
Yeah.
I understand. What are you, like 23? Like, that's so old.
Dude, I'm 26. So
Wow.
I know.
Did the Alzheimer's kick in yet, or like how's that?
It is actually, when I'm watching CTV over here, I just immediately think, God, I can't wait to be with this guy at his retirement home. I can't believe they let you do your room up like that there. Is that standard?
Oh yeah. For those that are able to be in 43-foot 5-slide travel trailers, they can travel the country whenever they fucking choose at a moment's notice. Because the reality is that whenever any of the conservative arguments
The dementia's setting in early.
No,
Okay.
whenever any of the conservative arguments come down to fuck it, if you don't like it, you can move. I live by the
Dude,
philosophy.
gypsies are
So
dope.
I challenge any other conservative out there on the plane, right, to live by the very fucking values that I fucking live by every fucking day. That's what I'm talking about.
You do live by your values like CTV does, Carter?
Oh, of course. You know what I do? My value, I give away everything. I have no house, no car. I do have an iPhone, so I'm a fake leftist. There's a fake, but I don't have a house. I don't have a car. I'm in debt.
You're kicked out. Go hang out with CTV. You have an iPhone.
There we go. Yeah, I can be a true
I don't-
leftist. I'll just get rid of my
Fucking
iPhone.
I got an Android only. I don't like the proprietary software that they try to control your fucking media. Okay.
Just,
That's right.
just,
That's
just
the
for the
way
record,
thing.
I would
Just
just
for the
like to
record.
reiterate that Stardust, the POC, has a POC woman has been oppressed the entire time
Really?
by Dylan and his cyber.
That's crazy.
So,
Anyway,
just
you
real
guys have a
quick,
great night.
real quick,
Love
real
you
quick,
all.
real quick, real quick, real
Yeah,
quick.
Fabian, say it. Yeah.
Motorola. I know you're gonna kick me out. I knew he's gonna do it. You just watched a clip from our Twitch channel, Fabian Liberty. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Fabian Liberty.